Hollywood has always been a playground for excess, glamour, and scandal, but some stars took it even further. Behind the flashing cameras and red carpet smiles were women who lived boldly, loved freely, and often defied society's rules, having multiple romantic partners along the way. From Mae West, the unapologetic queen of wit and independence, to Ava Gardner, who sought privacy and passion far from the Hollywood glare, these women weren't just famous. They were fearless Zsa Zsa Gabor turned charm into a brand. Louise Brooks lived rebellion on her own terms, and Marilyn Monroe hid deep insecurities beneath her iconic beauty. Their stories reveal a world where freedom, lust, and ambition collided, often with consequences. This is a look at 19 of Hollywood's most notorious and unforgettable nymphomaniacs, women who rewrote the rules of fame, love, and scandal. Lupe Velez. Long before modern tabloids, there was Lupe Velez, one of Hollywood's first Latina superstars. Born in Mexico, she burst into fame in the 1920s. With her bold energy and sharp wit, they nicknamed her the Mexican Spitfire. And if you ever saw her on screen, you'd know why. Lupe wasn't just fiery in movies, she lived that way. Her romance is read like a who's who of old Hollywood: Gary Cooper, Charlie Chaplin, Clark Gable, and Johnny Weissmuller, the Tarzan actor who became her husband. Every love story she touched seemed to explode with passion and chaos. She adored deeply, fought loudly, and forgave rarely. Rumor has it, during one of her infamous fights with Gary Cooper, she even pulled a gun on him. But behind the fame and fire, she was fragile. When her final relationship fell apart and she found herself pregnant and alone, she chose to end her life in 1944. Her story still echoes through Hollywood, a reminder that fame and love don't always mix. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor, one of the 20th century's most iconic actresses, is remembered for her beauty, talent, and 8 marriages to 7 men. But there's much more to her story. Beyond the tabloids, she became a fierce advocate for AIDS awareness when the topic was still taboo. Taylor's friendship with actor Rock Hudson, who died from AIDS, motivated her to take action. She co-founded the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, and helped raise millions for research, showing dedication to causes beyond the silver screen. Her life was also marked by lifelong health struggles, often invisible behind her glamorous image. She battled scoliosis, chronic back pain, over 40 surgeries, and was nearly blind in later years due to cataracts. Yet Taylor remained active in Hollywood and used her platform for activism, proving her resilience matched her talent. Her passionate relationship with Richard Burton was legendary, filled with alcohol-fueled fights, reconciliations, and public drama. Fewer know they were intellectual companions who shared a love of reading, exchanged books on history and literature, and wrote poetic, philosophical love letters. Taylor was also a savvy businesswoman, launching her perfume line, White Diamonds, one of the best-selling fragrances ever. Her financial independence allowed her to fund charities and support AIDS activism. While her fame is well known, it's her dedication to humanitarian work, resilience through illness, and intellectual pursuits that truly define her legacy. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was a force both on and off screen, famed for her flamboyant personality and scandalous lifestyle. Though recognized for her theatrical performances and deep husky voice, she was surprisingly progressive. Bankhead openly embraced bisexuality, describing herself as ambisextrous, and had relationships with both men and women, including actresses Patsy Kelly and singer Billie Holiday. Bankhead's political convictions were strong. She advocated for civil rights and women's rights, attending events with confidence and speaking her mind even when controversial. Her father, a U.S. congressman and Speaker of the House, influenced her involvement in politics. Her love of life included extravagant, infamous parties, where she often entertained guests in the nude, adding to her wild Hollywood persona. Yet behind her bold exterior, she struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, particularly cocaine, and had a deep fear of aging, often masked with humor. Despite her outrageous image, Bankhead was generous and compassionate, visiting orphanages, donating to those in need, and giving friends extravagant gifts. Her legacy as an entertainer is undeniable, but her role as an LGBTQ+ trailblazer, political advocate, and activist adds depth to the story of this remarkable woman. Lana Turner. Lana Turner is remembered for her glamorous image as Hollywood's sweater girl, and for the scandal surrounding the death of her lover, Johnny Stompanato. But many aspects of her life are lesser known. Turner, MGM's biggest star in the 1940s, had a career shaped by high-profile relationships and 8 marriages. Less known is the personal impact of her tumultuous love life and her mental health struggles. Turner grew up in a broken home. Her father was murdered when she was a child, leaving lasting trauma. This shaped her need for stability, often sought through controlling or abusive men. Her relationship with Stompanato, a gangster connected to the mob, ended in his violent death at her teenage daughter Cheryl's hands. Turner herself had suffered abuse and feared for her life in those final days. Her relationship with MGM was also tense. Though a bankable star, the studio tried to mold her into the girl next door, conflicting with her bad girl persona. Turner fought for roles that challenged this image, often facing resistance, and carved out a more complex career on her own terms. Another lesser-known side was her resilience as a mother. After Stompanato's death, she shielded Cheryl from media frenzy and remained dedicated to her. Even while rebuilding her career, Turner's life was glamorous, yet marked by hardship, resilience, and a constant pursuit of personal fulfillment beyond the silver screen. Jean Harlow. Often called Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, Jean had a brief but electrifying career that left a lasting mark on the industry. Remembered for her glamorous image in films like Hell's Angels and Dinner at 8, her life held far more tragedy and intrigue than the public realized. One of the most shocking events was the mysterious death of her second husband, Paul Byrne. Just months after their wedding, Byrne was found dead from a gunshot in their home, with Harlow's perfume scattered around him. Though officially ruled a suicide, rumors swirled about foul play, fueled by Byrne's troubled personal life. Despite this, Harlow's career soared, and she became one of MGM's most bankable stars. What many don't know is that Harlow struggled with health problems throughout her life. Her iconic platinum blonde hair, which set a Hollywood trend, came at a cost. Harsh chemicals like bleach and ammonia burned her scalp and damaged her hair. She also suffered from kidney disease, misdiagnosed at the time, which contributed to her sudden death at just 26, shocking fans worldwide. Her finances were equally complicated. Despite her fame, she wasn't wealthy, as her mother, known as Mama Jean, tightly controlled her earnings. This lack of control over her life off-screen added to Harlow's personal struggles, even as she portrayed strong, independent women on-screen. Harlow was also remarkably kind and generous. Loved by co-stars and crew alike, she often went out of her way to help others. Her down-to-earth nature created close friendships with stars like Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy, who were devastated by her untimely death. Though her life was short, Jean Harlow's legacy as one of Hollywood's most iconic stars endures. Her beauty, talent, and vulnerability, combined with the tragedies surrounding her life, continue to captivate fans and historians alike. Clara Bow. Known as the original It Girl, Bow was one of the brightest stars of the silent film era, but her life behind the scenes was far from glamorous. Born into extreme poverty in Brooklyn, New York, Bow's early years were filled with hardship. She grew up in a dysfunctional household with an abusive mother who suffered from mental illness and a mostly absent father. Her childhood was so harsh that she reportedly once had to defend herself from her mother with a butcher knife, an event that left deep emotional scars. These early struggles shaped Bow's lifelong need for love and validation, which she sought through fame and her relationships. Despite her traumatic upbringing, Bow's charm and screen presence were undeniable. She became a major star in the 1920s after the film It, which cemented her status as a sex symbol off-screen. Her life was just as scandalous as her persona. Bow was known for affairs with co-stars, directors, and even athletes, with rumors linking her to members of the USC football team. Much of it was fueled by Hollywood gossip, but Bow admitted to living a fast, wild lifestyle. Yet, she never truly felt at home in Hollywood. She often called herself a misfit and struggled with the pressures of fame. The transition to talkies only heightened her insecurities. Tabloids criticized her Brooklyn accent and brash personality, while personal scandals, including a damaging lawsuit against her former secretary, added to the stress. By the early 1930s, after a nervous breakdown, Bow retired from acting at just 28. She married actor Rex Bell, and they moved to Nevada, living a quieter life on a ranch. Despite this change, her struggles with mental illness continued. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, Bow spent much of her later life in seclusion, away from the adoring public that once celebrated her. Clara Bow's life was a mix of fame, tragedy, and resilience. Her meteoric stardom in the 1920s, coupled with her personal battles and Hollywood's harsh treatment, highlights the heavy toll early fame can take on even the brightest stars. Joan Collins. Joan Collins is widely known as the unforgettable Alexis Carrington in Dynasty, but her real-life story is equally dramatic. While her multiple marriages and notorious affairs often make headlines, few realize the depth of her personal and professional struggles. Collins has been married 5 times, but her second marriage to actor Warren Beatty drew the most attention. Their relationship was famously turbulent, ending when Collins left him due to his constant infidelity, yet Beatty wasn't her first heartbreak. At just 17, she was engaged to actor Maxwell Reed, who later drugged and assaulted her. Despite this trauma, she married Reed, though the union was short-lived. Before her Dynasty fame, Collins faced a challenging early career. Hollywood often typecast her in glamorous yet shallow roles, but she was determined to take control. Her persistence paid off with the role that would define her career. Success, however, brought new challenges. Collins frequently clashed with co-stars and producers over pay disparity, becoming one of the first female TV stars to demand equal pay to male counterparts. Her personal life continued to be tumultuous. Her third marriage, to businessman Ron Cass, ended after his drug addiction left her financially drained. To regain stability, Collins turned to writing, publishing best-selling novels and memoirs that restored her independence and showcased a side of her talent many didn't know. Collins has also had relationships with both men and women, though she kept her same-sex romances mostly private, especially in an era when Hollywood was less accepting. Even in her later years, she maintained her fearless, unapologetic approach. Working well into her 80s and remaining a prominent figure in British and American entertainment, Joan Collins stands as a trailblazer, not just for acting, but for her resilience, talent, and unwavering belief in herself. Barbara Lamar. From Budapest beauty queen to Hollywood legend, Zsa Zsa Gabor's life was a masterclass in reinvention. Born in Hungary and crowned Miss Hungary in 1936, she fled Nazi-occupied Europe and landed in America, where she turned her accent, her charm, and her wit into a celebrity brand all her own. She was famous for diamonds, dazzling outfits, and 9 marriages, yet behind the sparkle was a woman far more clever than many assumed. Her quips, "I never hated a man enough to give him his diamonds back," became part of pop culture lore, but she also launched a cosmetics line, published books on love, and navigated fame like a seasoned strategist. She bridged Hollywood and European royalty, moving in elite circles while keeping her image razor sharp. Tragedy struck in 2002. After a car accident on Sunset Boulevard left her partially paralyzed and wheelchair-bound, Gabor retreated from public view but never lost her spirit. Reports of her being hospitalized after falling out of bed while reaching for a phone became part of her enduring myth. Gabor's life was full of contradictions. She played the glamorous socialite perfectly, but underneath was a survivor who fought health crises, outlasted many of her peers, and remained in charge of her story to the very end. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth wasn't just a movie star, she was Hollywood in the 1940s. She danced, acted, and charmed her way into the hearts of millions. With her red hair and mysterious smile, she became the ultimate screen siren, most famously in Gilda. But the woman behind that image was far more delicate than anyone realized. Off-screen, Rita was shy and soft-spoken, almost the opposite of the characters she played. Still, she found herself drawn to powerful men, and married 5 of them, including director Orson Welles and Prince Ali Khan. Her love life was a storm of grand gestures and heartbreak. She once confessed that men fell in love with Gilda, not with her, and that line summed up her pain. She struggled with alcohol and a deep loneliness that no fame could fix. Rita's story wasn't one of addiction in the modern sense. It was a story about a woman forever chasing real love in a world that only wanted her fantasy. Marion Davies. Picture this, a dazzling blonde with a comic's timing and a millionaire's backing. That was Marion Davies. She could make an audience laugh before she even spoke, but her biggest role wasn't on camera. It was as the secret queen beside newspaper king William Randolph Hearst. Marion started as a talented actress with dreams of stardom, but Hearst, smitten and controlling, turned her into the leading lady of his story. He funded her films, directed her image, and guarded her like treasure. Yet behind his back, rumors swirled, whispers of her chemistry with Charlie Chaplin, the world's most famous comedian. One jealous outburst from Hearst was said to end in violence, turning gossip into legend. She loved Hearst until his final breath, but Hollywood never gave her full credit. To the world, she was the rich man's mistress. To those who knew her, she was the star who deserved her own headline. Louise Brooks. If rebellion had a face in the 1920s, it was Louise Brooks. Sharp bob, sharper tongue. She didn't just act in Pandora's box. She embodied freedom before Hollywood even knew the word. Brooks brought a fearless authenticity to the screen. Her performances raw, magnetic, and utterly modern, challenging every notion of how women should behave in cinema. Off-screen, Louise was equally unrestrained. She pursued relationships with men, women, artists, and thinkers, never hiding her desires or compromising her independence. While other actresses carefully curated public images, Brooks embraced her contradictions, insisting on honesty over polish. When Hollywood tried to tame her with contracts and typecasting, she walked away, leaving the studios frustrated and the world intrigued. Brooks's philosophy was simple. Pleasure was natural, pretense was the sin. Her lifestyle, her style, her very presence defied convention. Decades before feminism and sexual liberation entered mainstream thought, she lived as if freedom were her birthright, unapologetically, brilliantly, and forever unforgettable. Jayne Mansfield. When Jayne Mansfield walked into a room, cameras didn't just follow her, they worshipped her. She was the living definition of extra. Glitter, laughter, curves, chaos. Jayne didn't just play the bombshell, she invented the blueprint. Unlike other blondes of her time, Jayne didn't wait for Hollywood to discover her. She staged her own fame, shocking photo ops, witty one-liners, and outfits that turned every entrance into an event. She married 3 times, flirted with presidents, and lived like life was a never-ending red carpet. Some called her scandalous, others called her brilliant. She blurred the line between marketing and madness, using sex appeal as both weapon and armor. But beneath the sparkle was a woman desperate to stay seen, to stay wanted. Her tragic death in 1967 ended the spectacle, but the myth of Jayne Mansfield never really faded. Jean Tierney. Jean Tierney's elegance wasn't just Hollywood glamour. It was a presence that left people silent in awe. With her porcelain features, poised demeanor, and mesmerizing gaze, she captivated audiences in classics like Laura and Leave Her to Heaven. Yet behind that graceful image was a woman navigating a turbulent life. Off-screen, Jean's world was far less serene than the characters she embodied. She married famed designer Oleg Cassini, and their love was passionate but unstable. Affairs, heartbreak, and periods of deep loneliness followed, leaving her searching for steadiness in a world that rarely offered it. Jean also battled bipolar disorder, which brought unpredictable moods and added strain to her relationships, intensifying the challenges of fame and family life. Scandal never needed chasing. It seemed to shadow her no matter where she went. Jean's story wasn't about ambition or greed. It was about a woman seeking connection, trying to quiet the inner storms, and loving too fiercely, too often. Behind the polished exterior, she was fragile, resilient, and profoundly human. A star whose brilliance was matched only by the struggles she endured. Joan Crawford. If ambition had a heartbeat, it would sound like Joan Crawford's. Born into poverty, she clawed her way to Hollywood's heights, frame by frame, spotlight by spotlight. Known for her fierce gaze, sharp features, and commanding presence, Crawford meticulously built herself into an empire, shaping her image with precision, one sharp line, one perfect pose at a time. She was a master of reinvention, always aware of the power of publicity and the public's gaze. But power came at a cost. Her love life read like a Hollywood screenplay. Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy, relationships that sparkled as brightly as they burned out. Crawford craved control in everything: her career, her image, her men, her future. Rumors claimed she used seduction as strategy, making desire a tool to maintain influence and visibility. Behind the glamour, she was terrified of fading away. 5 marriages, relentless gossip, and a constant hunger for attention kept her in motion. To the public, she was a diva. To herself, she was fighting to stay seen, to be relevant, and to protect the persona she had painstakingly crafted. Her story is one of ambition, brilliance, and the personal costs of always striving to be unforgettable. Mabel Normand. Before Marilyn, before Mae, there was Mabel Normand, the first queen of comedy. She didn't just make people laugh. She defined what comedy looked like on screen during the silent film era, combining charm, timing, and a mischievous spark that set the standard for generations of performers to come. Yet behind the laughter, Mabel's life was far from carefree. She lived passionately and recklessly, drawn to high society, fast living, and the thrill of the moment. Drugs, alcohol, and scandal were constant companions. Her love life was tumultuous, involving a series of lovers, many of them powerful men. But it wasn't her romances that shocked Hollywood. It was her connection to tragedy. 2 major scandals, including a murder and a shooting, became forever tied to her name. Though she was never convicted, the media frenzy and public scrutiny tarnished her reputation and nearly ended her career. Despite the chaos, her fans remembered her for the twinkle in her eye, the laughter she brought to the screen, and her fearless energy. To Hollywood, she became a cautionary tale about femme, freedom, and the fire that burns too hot to last. But to the audience, she remained the mischievous, unforgettable star who first showed the world that women could be funny, bold, and unapologetically themselves.
Mae West.
Mae West didn't wait for Hollywood to hand her power. She wrote her own scripts and built her own stage. With sharp wit, bold curves, and business smarts, she wasn't just a sex symbol, she was a trailblazer. Her public persona was full of flirtation, but in private, her love life was simple. She spent decades with Paul Novak, 30 years her junior, who stayed loyal and out of the spotlight. Mae joked about men, but her real devotion was to independence. Few know she was also an early LGBTQ+ ally. Mae admired drag performers and featured them in her shows when it was shocking. In 1927, her play The Drag explored gay men's hidden lives, banned by censors but proof of her fearless storytelling. Mae also had a sharp eye for business. She invested in Los Angeles real estate before the boom, staying wealthy and independent while many stars went broke. Her legacy lives on, not just in pop culture, but in her bold, uncompromising spirit. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner wasn't just Hollywood's quintessential beauty. She was fiercely independent, intensely private, and far more complex than the tabloids suggested. Married to some of the era's biggest stars, including Mickey Rooney, Artie Shaw, and Frank Sinatra, her life was marked by passion, turbulence, and resilience. But Gardner always maintained her own code. She shunned Hollywood's endless parties and gossip, instead retreating to Spain, where she immersed herself in flamenco, bullfighting, and the rhythms of local life. Her marriage to Sinatra was legendary for its intensity, jealousy, explosive fights, and deep love. But even after divorce, he continued to support her financially, highlighting the enduring connection they shared. Ava often admitted that her beauty carried her career more than her acting, yet audiences recognized the rare blend of vulnerability and inner strength she brought to every role, marking her as a subtle symbol of rebellion in a world obsessed with conformity. Gardner's life was guided by freedom, privacy, and authenticity. She chose experiences over appearances, truth over spectacle, and independence over dependence. Hollywood gave her fame, but she defined her life on her own terms, leaving a legacy of elegance, courage, and quiet defiance. Zsa Zsa Gabor. Zsa Zsa Gabor may be remembered for diamonds, wit, and 9 marriages, but her life was far more than glitz. Born in Hungary, educated in Austria, and crowned Miss Hungary in 1936, she escaped Nazi-occupied Europe to start fresh in America. Her humor was legendary. I never hated a man enough to give him his diamonds back. Behind the jokes, she was a smart businesswoman who turned fame into TV appearances, commercials, and self-promotion long before personal branding existed. She moved effortlessly between Hollywood stars and European royalty, bridging worlds while maintaining control over her image. Even after a 2002 car crash left her partially paralyzed, her humor and larger-than-life personality remained intact. The accident, which caused head injuries, broken bones, and wheelchair dependence, forced her into a mostly bedridden life. Yet, she stayed sharp, even making headlines after falling out of bed while reaching for the phone at her Bel Air home. Gabor's life was full of contradictions. While she played the glamorous, man-crazy socialite, she was highly intelligent and business-savvy. She launched a cosmetics company, published books on love and relationships, and carefully crafted her fame into a personal brand. Behind the sparkle, she was a survivor who faced trauma, health crises, and fierce independence, always in control of her story. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is often remembered as Hollywood's ultimate sex symbol, but her personal struggles, mental health issues, and complex relationships reveal a far more tragic story than the glamorous image she projected. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, Monroe's early life was unstable. She grew up in foster homes and an orphanage, while her mother struggled with mental illness and was institutionalized. These experiences deeply affected her, leaving her seeking approval and love through relationships. In public, Monroe was married 3 times, first to James Doe Sherry at 16, then to baseball star Joe DiMaggio, and finally to playwright Arthur Miller. Each marriage had its challenges. Her marriage to DiMaggio was marked by jealousy and control, with DiMaggio reportedly enraged by her iconic scene in The 7-Year Itch, where her dress billows over a subway grate. He wanted her to leave Hollywood and live a quiet, traditional life, which Monroe refused. Despite their divorce, he remained a close confidant, even arranging her funeral. Her marriage to Miller, one of her most intellectually stimulating relationships, ended in heartbreak as Monroe felt emotionally abandoned, worsening her depression. Monroe was far from the dumb blonde she portrayed. She was highly intelligent and deeply curious, owning over 400 books, including works by Dostoevsky, James Joyce, and Tolstoy. She craved deeper connection and sought self-improvement through education, showing a side of her that few recognized. Her insecurities were worsened by drug and alcohol use. Prescription medication, fueled by Hollywood pressures and emotional struggles, led to increasingly erratic behavior on sets, sometimes resulting in her being fired. Monroe's tragic death in 1962, ruled a probable suicide, remains a source of speculation, with rumors of affairs with John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy adding to the intrigue. Hollywood has long celebrated glamour and scandal, but the stories of these 19 stars show how desire, ambition, and rebellion often collided. Behind the headlines were people exploring freedom, love, and sometimes chaos, pushing boundaries that society wasn't ready to accept. Their lives were messy, bold, and unforgettable, proof that fame magnifies both passion and trouble. Did you enjoy this video? Don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button for more nostalgic content.